Hello and welcome to Barbara's podcast. This is the show for women, all about health, nutrition, and wellness. It's the show that will empower you and inspire you to create a healthier lifestyle.
Well, hello and welcome to the show where we explore the world of holistic health and wellness. Today, I'm excited to introduce Dorothy Cook, a stress and anxiety reduction specialist, Neurological and Body Talk focus, and also an international bestseller. Welcome, Dorothy.
Thanks for having me on, Barbara.
It's my pleasure. Well, Dorothy, your journey from emotional struggle to healing is inspiring. Can you share the moment when you realized that your emotions were impacting your health and what steps you took to start your healing process?
Well, it had to get really strong before I took notice of it. So the symptoms were there. I got sensitivity to scent. I would get migraines walking down a grocery aisle in the detergent section. Couldn't be in anything like that. I was getting extremely tired and sleeping more and more. And then the last straw was where I made a major error at work, and that was my wake-up call. So had I been reading the signs and doing something about it, then I could have avoided having to quit work and be off work for a year. So it was quite severe in my case, and really 10 years to totally heal up.
Yes. So you've mentioned that after hard years of work, you were able to heal yourself and bring back your smile. What were some of the key techniques or practices that helped you release that emotional baggage and to restore your health?
Right, that's a very good question. So I worked at multiple levels. I had to get off all the foods that I was allergic to. So we found that out through blood work. I had gone to medical doctors, but they were unable to diagnose what was going on with me. They could validate. So just recently, about 10 years ago, I found out, so this would be 20 years later, I found out my brain had gone rogue. But so back then I didn't work with my brain, but that's what I do now. But I worked with a coach who helped me to work through some repressed emotions. I come from a big family. We lived in a small house. I'm the youngest sibling of 6. So, lots of turmoil there on that one. And so it was emotional. It was the dietary. And then I even did some spiritual work. It was an interesting journey, but that took a course of 10 years to kind of walk through all of that. And then now more recently, now that I know it's with my brain, my limbic system, fight, flight, or freeze is the term most people would know, the emotional part of the brain. That's really what was triggered. And then that's why the doctors could not find out what was going on. So that's why I encourage people to be aware of their stress levels, because that's what affects, one of the things that affects your limbic system.
Yes, absolutely. Did you take any supplements or any hormone adaptogens to help you deal with the stress? Did you have any favorites?
As I was walking through that 10-year journey of healing my health, I worked with naturopaths, and so I did get on some hormonal because that was my early 40s when all that happened and my body was starting to transition. Yes. So the natural hormone product, I don't remember which one it was, but I was on it for a few years. No longer. I'm in my almost 70 now, so I'm quite a bit beyond that point.
No longer needed.
Thank you so much. Yeah. What else did I was on natural supplements, but I've always been that natural kind of person too. I always ate healthy, and I hardly ever had pop or junk food. Like, I really was a healthy person because I was athletic back then. And so I just ate really well. I would say that was the biggest factor that I did.
Okay, so clean eating. And you took a holistic approach, I see, with the working on your body, mind, and the spirit.
Yeah.
Well, as a stress and anxiety reduction specialist, you focus on neurological and body talk techniques. Can you explain to us what these approaches are and how they work to help others reduce stress and anxiety?
Love that question. Okay. So stress causes the statistics, people can Google this, around 90% of the health issues, and there's some stats that show it even higher,
Yes.
are affected or are stress based. All right. So one of the techniques that all the techniques I use work really quickly and
Yep.
take less than a minute to do. So if you have to go running, if you have to meditate, those are great, but they are time consuming. And if you're a busy mom or, you got lots on your plate, those don't work. So what I do does work in very short, quick amounts of time. So if I can give just a little tip for some of the moms, if you take 4 deep breaths and hold it for 4 seconds in between each breath, the studies are showing that you cannot be stressed at the same time you're doing this. All right. So you take a big breath down to the bottom of your stomach, you hold it for 4 seconds, and then you release it, and you do that 4 times. That should help bring down the stress level. Now, that's not my typical focus, but it's a really good tool to use. One of my focuses is the emotional part of your brain. The limbic system doesn't use language. So if you're trying to say, I'm not stressed, I'm not afraid, I'm not this, I'm not that, it doesn't work on the emotional part of the brain. It uses a different language. You have to picture yourself not stressed. You have to picture yourself not angry and frustrated with your little one. You have to picture yourself being able to do the things you have to do. And if you use pictures, you're helping the brain to solve the problem, and it will release your stressors. All right. Now, up to a certain point, you can use your words, because that's the smart part of your brain, is my forehead right here. And that's the part we're using right now. But if you trigger emotionally, let's say you snap because it's just too high stress, you now leave the logical part of the brain and you go into the reactive, which is at the crown of your head and deep within. So when you get to, you can avoid getting to the emotional part of the brain, but you have to be aware of what your body is speaking to you. And a lot of people think that the emotions are the first thing that'll speak to you, but it's not. It's the physical body. So if I start clenching my jaws, if I start rubbing my shoulders, if I start feeling my stomach, I can tell you what level of stress that I'm actually at. So if people use red light, yellow light, green light, just like driving, green is low level. Yellow is stop, caution, look both ways. What's going on with my stress? And red, high alert, is danger. You're going to make some really bad mistakes. All right. If you don't pull it down real quick. And so if people will listen to their physical bodies as a first responder, it's responding first, they can turn the corner, avoid the car crash, and stay in a safe zone emotionally, so that they can be there for their kids and their spouse and their family, or a situation that has to happen. It's really cool what you can do when you listen to your physical body.
Yeah, I think that's some very good advice. I like what you said, but you've got the red, orange, and green, because we do have to start being aware of how our body speaks to us, and I find myself very often going into high stress that I clench my fists. I think that's one of the signs.
Yep. Yeah. That definitely would be. And so then what you want to do is go, is this a low, medium, or high? Like my fist. My guess is that it might be the yellow, the medium. And so there'll be other indicators prior to that, maybe, that you don't recognize. Like I have groups that I run, and one was running yesterday. It was the first one. And the lady, we were debriefing at the end of the group, and she says, I noticed my stomach this whole class. She says, I don't normally notice it. I said, well, you probably were a little bit anxious, because this wasn't her cup of tea to be on this kind of stuff, but she wanted to learn. And so now that she's aware, she's going to learn tools how to pull it down. And one of those tools is the breathing. Another is using pictures to disengage the brain. And this works really good even for past traumas, present tense stressors. It just, again, studies show that when you unhook the brain, it happens very quickly and it's permanent.
Yes.
It's not I have to repeat it all the time. And so dental phobia, agoraphobia, agoraphobia being not able to go out easily into the public. Okay. Sleep deprivation. I've gotten those within an hour. We've been able to unhook those, and people have their lives back. And that's after a lifetime of having those issues. Those are 3 different examples I use. The most I have 2 really wild ones. One is her seizures reduced by 37%, medically documented, because now she's monitoring her physical body. If your listeners can hear one thing, it's listen to your physical body. Don't ignore your stressors, because if you do ignore it, you're going to end up either with a major illness or flat on your back like I was. You know, they now call it chronic fatigue. They didn't have a term for it back then. All right. And I slept 20 hours out of 24. I lost my life, you know, a year of my life. So this is totally avoidable, even for moms with young kids and lots of stress. Doesn't matter the level of stress. It matters how you deal with your stress. And if people want to know more, I would love for them to contact me, and let's get you moving on it so you don't get sick and 20 years later end up, you know, with something you don't want to work with.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there's a lot of listeners who are dealing with emotional challenges. What would be one piece of advice or a simple first step that they can take to begin unpacking their emotional baggage and find their own smile again?
I love that question. Okay, the first step is to recognize where they're at. You can't change what you're in denial of. So just recognize and then try and find something that is empowering. So if they're in an abusive situation, maybe they have to look at, is it worth me staying in it? If it's a job, or, you know, the kids are screaming all the time, maybe they need some supports to help offset some of their stressors. So awareness, just recognition and awareness is step number 1. It really is. Step number 2 after that is to find something that works for them. It's going to be different for everybody's situation. So maybe it's to, you know, just step out of the room if you've got screaming kids and take a few deep breaths, recuperate, and then step back into it again. Like, it doesn't have to be major choices, but there needs to be little decisions that are made. Or maybe you're standing in the kitchen and you can't leave the pot because you're stirring it and it's got a timer on it. Well, do a mental little picture. If you can think of a cartoon picture, your brain, your emotional brain wants 2 things. It wants to be safe and it wants to figure out how to solve the problem. So if you use your imagination to create a funny cartoonish picture, and you can, if you've got voices in there that are loud and yelling at you, you can change the voices to cartoon like Donald Duck or Mickey Mouse and pull it down. Your brain will let it go if it starts to feel safe. If it doesn't, it's going to keep going around and around, and it's like that hamster on a wheel, you know, it just keeps circling all the time. That's when you know you need some tools to maybe help. I call it unhooking the brain, so you can get off the hamster wheel and get back on life or in life and back on track and feel good about yourself again. You know, because when you're exhausted and you're tired, you're also beating yourself up because you are that way. And that's the worst thing that you can do. Because I know when I was struggling with my health in my 40s, when I finally stopped beating myself up and going, okay, this is my reality right now. This is not what I used to be, you know, because I was always comparing myself to what I used to be, quite athletic. I began to heal. I began to make better choices. I began to move on because I was listening to my limitations of what my health, my energy levels could handle. So that's really important too. If women, again, but that means listening to their bodies. All right. If they listen to their body and they're really tired and really fatigued, and they can sit down for that minute, or they can just put on some calming music, or if they can, you know, maybe they love to just paint. Maybe they can paint with their kids and just, you know, have fun together just for a minute. It doesn't have to be long amounts of time. but you do need to take a break from, these long focuses, because the brain doesn't do well under that. So go to the bathroom if you have to, and have a bit of a cry, because crying also makes me feel good all the time if I let it out, and then put your face back on and get back out there for the family.
Yeah. I'm sure that's helped. I've heard of some from some other mums, like they'll go into the car, close all the windows, and have a good scream for a couple of minutes, and then get back out and just face the world again.
Oh, yeah, like totally. And here's another little tool if they can't get into a car or don't have a car, is you get an old pillow, you put a piece of paper on top of it, you get a pen or a pencil, and then you just start poking through the pillow. And the sound of the poking will actually get you to probably poke harder and harder until you're just stabbing it hard. And you're not doing any damage other than to the pillow, but the releasing of those emotions is really powerful, because you need to hear, we're like volcanoes. If we don't have that release down at the bottom, we're just, that pressure is going to come up and out. But volcanoes, even if they're steaming, if they have a release down at the bottom shelves, they will never blow. So women have to find a way to release the pressure. So if they scream in the car, if they go have a good cry, if they poke the pillow, if they get creative. By the way, you can't be creative and stressed at the same time. So go get creative, whether it's, pastel chalks or, paints or crayons, whatever. Just get creative. Maybe you like to knit. Doesn't matter. It helps you to de-stress, because you can't do both at the same time.
You're absolutely right. I find when I bring out my little sketchbook and I start drawing, everything goes away. You're in the present moment, and you're just there focused. You don't think about any of the day's worries or concerns.
Yeah, that's right. One of my favorite things to do is, I have a park across the street, is I take my iPhone and I love to take pictures, and I zone out. Like, people don't want to walk with me because I'm stopping so often to take a picture. But it is just taking my focus away from the stressor. So yeah, it doesn't matter what you do, find something you love to do and go do it, as long as it's, healthy and clean, and, doesn't get you into any trouble. If you're a shopaholic, you may not want to do that. You spend too much money.
No, there's healthier ways to de-stress.
That's right.
Well, you're also an international best-selling author. So how has sharing your story through writing impacted your journey and the lives of those who read your work?
Well, that came out this year in 2024, and I was invited to write a book. So I said, okay, and I wrote it. It's the journey. Probably I've been in this field for over 30 years. Somebody counted up, I think it was 37 years. I couldn't believe it. And it's my journey of working with people in the workforce. So it's designed for women who are in business. It's so easy to try and just, do time management and do all the externals. But if we work on our internal issues, we then have less problems with those things that are stressing us out, because you have the tools to work with stress. You have better identity. And that's what that book is all about. It's learning to be the best version of you in the workplace. And so the workplace might be at home. Be the best you can be. But for me, it was just fun. Like, when I heard that I was a bestseller, but then they said you're an international bestseller, I really was like, really? Like, I didn't even know that term existed. Okay, so that was just a really fun moment for me. And I wrote that book when I was caring for an elderly lady. She would sleep and I'd be on my laptop, writing my book. And so it was a great use of my time when when I wasn't as free to go out and about, because I was caring for a loved one.
Yes.
And she's now passed at 102.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, she was very old, but she was very, very fit and sound mind right up until, pretty much a month, maybe two before she passed. So it was a delight. And but yeah, I took some downtime that kept me confined to the house, and I was productive. So, moms can get really frustrated because they're tied to the house, but you can be productive in ways that fill your own heart. I
Yes.
know you love your kids, but they can really be grating on you at times. And like you said, you pull out your sketchbook or your creative. Have that piece of paper where you can just be creative, or maybe you like the baking, and you're creative there. I have a friend who's a florist. She's an amazing florist. Well, she can just stand in her kitchen and work with different pieces, and be creative. And so we just need to be creative to find ways to fill our tank, our emotional tank that meets our own needs. We're as moms, we're always pouring out into others' lives, but you can't keep pouring if you have an empty cup. So
No.
it's about refilling your cup in however it works for you, and be creative. Like when I was recovering from chronic fatigue syndrome, one of the things I tried was painting. And I found out I had this amazing gift. I had not done it other than as a kid prior to that, and so we might have some lovely surprises when we adventure into new areas,
Yeah.
and just, see what really, gives us energy and helps us to wake up in the morning with a smile on our face. Because we don't have that, then it's a tough day. It really is.
Yeah. There should be some moments within the day where we bring out our smile, instead of taking life too seriously.
That's right. And if we can learn to laugh at ourselves, it
Yeah.
gets even better, because even if you can laugh at your mistakes, you're teaching your kids a really good tool. For those that can't, you're teaching your kids that it's all based on performance, and they need to know unconditional acceptance. And that means making mistakes is okay, but you have to model it and learn to laugh at yourself, in nice ways.
Yeah. Well, in closing, where can our listeners get in touch with you?
I would use my email address. My name is Dorothy, so it's Dorothy J at dorothyjcook.com. I'm changing over from a website to an app. So
Okay.
that's the guaranteed is Dorothy J at dorothyjcook.com. If they want to head over to my website right now, it'll be up for another month for sure. That's dorothyjcook.com. All right, Dorothy with two O's and Cook without the E, dorothyjcook.com.
Thank you, Dorothy, for sharing your expertise and insights with us today. It's been an absolute pleasure having you as my guest.
Thank you so much. And I just hope and pray that the listeners will get something useful out of it. So thank you for hosting a podcast.
That's my pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Barbara's podcast. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter or e-courses. Celebrate life, and see you at the next episode.